Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of Hash It Out. My name is Justin Moorhead, and I'm here, as usual, with my good buddy Mitchell Evans, and we're here to talk about James chapter 1, verses 12 through 15. This is a sermon that was preached yesterday. It's the most recent sermon here, and this is what we want to do. If you're new to Hash It Out, we probably have some people that are new. I've heard we have millions of viewers at this point.
Yes,
so
at
least.
Yeah.
You may be one of them, so let me just take you on tour real quick. This is what we do on Hash It Out. What we want to do is talk about this most recent sermon, the passage, but not in a way where we're rehearsing and re-reciting every illustration and every statement that was made. But there's stuff that was either left out or things that would be a good jump-off point into a more edifying conversation.
Intentionally left out.
Yeah. It's not like he ran out of time or anything like that. Some stuff you just leave for the podcast because it's so good.
That's right.
So that's what we're going to do. We just want to talk about some interesting ideas from this passage. So James chapter 1, like I said, verses 12 to 15. I want to read this verse to get us started. It's verse 13. It says this: "Let no one say when he is tempted, 'I am being tempted by God,' for God cannot be tempted with evil, and he himself tempts no one." First question right out of the gate, which I think is a very interesting question. I just heard it posed recently. The Lord teaches us how to pray in Matthew. And he says this prayer to the Father in heaven: "Lead us not into temptation," is a part of the Lord's Prayer. What do we do about this seeming contradiction that we find in the Bible? God leads no one into temptation, but Jesus is asking us to pray, "Lead us not into temptation."
Dude, let's make it work. It says, "Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one."
Right.
In Matthew 6, we back up just a little bit. Chapter 4, the Holy Spirit leads Jesus out into the wilderness, and he is tempted by the devil.
Oh.
So you're like, man, so which one is it?
Right.
And then you got James saying, he never tempts anybody. So it's the difference between God produces an occasion, but he doesn't produce a cause. So he produces an occasion in which we're led into the wilderness. James is clearly saying, but he's not the cause of the sin that occurs from the trial that we face. So James you might say, somewhat of a thin line, right, in our understanding, but James is helping us paint it in pretty black and white terms.
So God is causing the occasion.
I think that might be confusing. I'm saying God is the one who's bringing about the occasion, but he's not the cause of our sin.
He doesn't cause it. What about the temptation? I feel like we left that one all the way out.
Yeah, so he's putting you in a trial. So the way it would work is if God has you in a spot where you're low on funds.
Okay, yeah.
Right? The trial is poverty.
Yes. And we all know that's not true. You know
money back, you can't have money.
I mean, look at this thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's got you in that spot.
Yeah.
And you think, man, how could I pass this liquor store without robbing it? You know, how could I?
Amen.
How could I?
Right.
The next thing you know, you're coming out with a fifth and $500.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, putting bread on the table now.
That's right.
So,
baby's got to eat.
Or drink, whatever the occasion may be. So we would say, God has you in the trial.
Right.
He is sovereign over the fact you're driving in front of this liquor store. What James is drawing out is your desire.
Right.
Is what leads you to rob it. So we cannot say God didn't bring about the circumstances in which you're driving by this liquor store and you're impoverished and all these kind of things. That is true. That's the whole point in James saying, so endure. Don't give in to the temptation. If you do give in to the temptation, you can't blame God. Because the giving in, that was caused by you. Even though you may have been in the occasion. What I think the Lord's Prayer is saying is, God, I want to be, and I think it lines up with this perfectly, in fact. I want to be in the position where I endure well. So lean me into situations where I am going to endure. It's this desire to endure. Lead me not into temptation where I fail.
Right.
Please lead me beyond those moments, out of those moments, away from those moments. So I would say that is actually lines up really well with the rest of the Bible. I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
wisdom literature would tell you the Bible operates on multiple levels. So if there's a sin that you're prone to, the Bible says you need a change of heart, but also change your environment.
Right.
So I think you should stop driving in front of the liquor store.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it's working on multiple levels.
Pick a different way to go home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, probably today. This is entirely a joke. Everybody's like,
that's right.
You both
I don't even live
far.
near a liquor store.
Yeah. So I think that is where. So I get that some people might be like, man, those sound really close together. And I think that is what James is saying is they are really close together, but we should realize that they don't overlap.
Do you think, and this is maybe getting away for James, but I think it's even thinking about how to apply the Lord's Prayer to life. If you were just praying for God to change your environment, is that similar? Lead us not into temptation. Like God, I really need to change who I associate with at work. I need you to move my cube or something. I mean, help me. Is that idea of lead me not into temptation, rather than trying to put God on the hook for my sinful desires, really saying, help the occasion be different, help the circumstance be different, or the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you got some lady who thinks your cubicle analogy.
Yeah.
Man, if I stay next to this person, feel like an inappropriate relationship could come out of it. So I'm going to go to my boss and say, can I move? And I can't say because I think something inappropriate is going to come out of it, cause some HR issues.
Sure.
So Lord, would you just grease the wheels and allow me to find a new place at work? I don't know what that would look like.
Right.
And I ask for your intervention because just lead me not into temptation. I think that would be a spot of deliverance.
Yeah.
As the prayer says. So,
sure.
Yeah, I think that would be a very practical. What I think James is saying is you pray that way on the one hand.
Sure.
Giving in to sin is on the other hand. You can't say, well, I prayed and I still gave into it, so I get to blame God.
Right.
He's saying, no, that you're still the cause. You're still the cause. I think, well, in James's scenario, the person doesn't even pray. They didn't pray, lead me not into temptation. They just gave into it and then blamed God. So,
well,
to
I
be
think,
fair.
Something from the sermon that came out that was really helpful, kind of a quippy little phrase to remember, is that God never wants your failure. He always wants your faith. So to think if it's not, because temptation, just by definition, is wanting failure. You're tempted to fail. Where a test maybe is wanting to see performance, it's wanting to prove growth and these sorts of things. So God tests us, he doesn't tempt us. God never wants our failure, he always wants our faith. So that was a really helpful thing from the sermon. I did think this, though. It does seem to be the case that the types of trials that the Lord would call us to endure for the sake of our faith are often come out of our failures. I've misstepped, and it's produced this difficulty in my life, and now that's the thing that I'm having to endure. It's going to produce this type of growth in my faith. So how, and this may be kind of just too on top of itself, but do we understand that? If God's never wanting our failures, but it seems also a very clear biblical idea that God uses our failures for the sake of our growth, how do we understand that? How do we reconcile that?
I think in a word, grace.
Okay, yeah.
I think that's purely what it is. God did, with Adam and Eve, they failed. It does ultimately lead to death.
Sure.
And it doesn't lead to death immediately.
Yeah.
Right? You failed, and I couldn't wait to cut you down. He makes a sacrifice of an animal and clothes them so that they can have this provision. And they leave the garden, but they continue to be fed, and they have children, and all of these sort of things transpire from it. And you would say all of that was just God being merciful to them. So it wasn't, you fail, I can't wait to get you.
Right.
Right. So I think on the one hand, to see that. Then on the other hand, to say, well, there are times, like you mentioned, we do sin. Adam and Eve sinned. People sinned. So then for God to use not only use us, he doesn't use us just despite our sin. A lot of times, just as you're pointing out, he uses the point of failure to redeem us from our sin. So we sin, we face some consequences, and he'll even use those consequences in a redemptive way.
Yeah.
So yes, I think that's a...
And if I can just add something to that I think is really helpful, that I have struggled with in the past, and it's occasions like this sort of discussion that I think put on to display a really good practice in how you think through God and think through the Bible, is we can do this thing that I know you've heard referred to as flattening a text or flattening an idea with theology. So if you make it so that God, if he never wants our failure, then God's in this catch-22 of, but if he uses your failure to help promote your growth, but he never really wanted your failure, then what's really true and God is somehow a liar or something like that. But it's flattening the reality of God's grace and kind of how God works in our life to try to pin God down or find some theological catch-22 to put him in. But I think that's a really often a temptation, especially with people that are thinking through these ideas for the first time maybe, and they're really trying to figure out, well, what's true? It can't be this and this. But so often in the Christian life, it is two things at one time. It is two things that you have to hold at the same time.
Yes, yeah. The Bible actually has nuance. It's not just pat answers.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
And one other thing, and this may be kind of similar to what we're discussing right now, but this idea of endurance has been a thread through all of these first verses of James. And that the idea that there's going to be these trials that we can rejoice in because it's an opportunity to endure, and that's going to be profitable. It's going to make us complete whole people, is kind of continuing on as we work through this first chapter. Endurance. When we think like endurance is the thing that's going to lead to life, and to not endure is going to be this thing that leads to death. What exactly does endurance mean? Is this in this one trial you did it sin-free, so you endured it well? Does it just mean on the whole of your Christian life, don't allow your trials to cause you to fall away from the faith, which would obviously prove you to be in a kind of a position of death, not life, to not be a Christian anymore? What is the endurance? Is it this kind of up close view of endurance, kind of situation by situation, or is it more of a whole Christian life endurance?
Yes. I know that's unfair.
No, it's good.
It's both, right?
It's both.
It is the whole
both.
Christian life. But the way James is talking about it is he has in mind you're going through a specific set of circumstances, specific situation.
Yeah.
Where you would be tempted, you might say, or even tried as to whether or not you will keep the faith through the process. And so that really was the earlier portion of the chapters. He's talking about this endurance concept. By the time you get to the passage we're referencing, he's adding to that. So in the one sense, you would say, keep the faith in all of life and through a specific difficult time.
Sure, yeah.
Right? Your specific difficult time, some of us have a real specific date. We've gotten really short on funds, and we've got to make it to the end of the month. And I could kind of do something that would be maybe bad stewardship, or I could do something that would be dishonest and kind of make this a little bit easier. Come back to the liquor store, make this a little bit easier, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep my faith. I'm going to trust that God will provide. That would be enduring.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
However, what James is pointing to here is blame shifting. So it's a little, again, that nuance I think is helpful. What they're doing is they're giving into it, but then blaming the circumstances, the trial they're in. It's not really my fault. God, you've got me in this situation. So yes, I messed up, but the blame shifting, the blame onto God. So it is in one sense, I acknowledge I messed up. Right. But I wouldn't have gotten so angry if you weren't, kind of fill in the blank. I wouldn't be so angry if I didn't have to deal with stupid people. I wouldn't be so angry if the town wasn't full of bad drivers. I wouldn't be so angry if I didn't have Verizon customer service. Right? So, or probably AT&T. That's maybe just showing my anger, I guess. So I wouldn't be so angry if it wasn't for this, and so I'm blame shifting.
Yes.
what James is calling us out on is God allowed the trial to come about where you were talking to the customer service in the traffic or whatever. He allowed the trial to come about. So in the end, you blaming the circumstances is you blaming God.
Right.
At the same time, I think where James is very insightful is he's wanting to produce our endurance, our growth. Mm-hmm. Blame shifting is a form of denial.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to be accountable for it. I even did chat GPT to see what it would say about blame shifting, and it gave like a 5-word response. Blame shifting is, and then it was like a lack of accountability. I mean, it's really short.
Yeah.
Really, really short. So I think it hopefully is obvious enough that James doesn't have to spell it out. If chat GPT could figure it out, I feel like anybody can. So the issue with denial, where it would undercut your endurance, is that's kind of I would say the key James is after. And in the passage, I think it's really helpful. Mm-hmm. For instance, he's about to address anger in verse 19.
Right.
Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, for the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. So as long as I'm in denial, as long as I feel like this is not really an issue, I'm going to excuse and perpetuate my anger.
Yeah.
Then out of the same mouth, I'm going to pray and say, God, I just really want to serve you. I just really hope I can honor you today. So I think 20 is helpful. The angry person in verse 20, be slow to anger, for the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God.
Right.
So what James is calling us to is by blame shifting, I'm acting like anger does not exist in my life. And then I want to serve God, and I don't see why it won't work out.
Yeah, or even to think about, I mean, earlier when we talked about wisdom last week, I think, to think wisdom is thinking in a godly way, in a particularly godly way about my trial, about my circumstance, what's a good godly takeaway from it. If one of the things that we're learning from James here, in verse 14, each person is tempted by his own desire. That's the thing that's tempting me. But I'm in each of these trials, blame shifting. It's this, it's this, it's this. It's you're proving yourself to be a fool rather than the wise person who's really thinking well about their trial and saying, I know this is me. I know that it's me more than the traffic. I know that it's me more than my money. This is just that I am this kind of angry person, is really thinking in a godly way about the trial. Because it's in line with what God's saying. He's saying that it's not going to be your context, your circumstance. It's not going to be God. You know, God tempts no one, but it's you. Your desire is the thing that's tempting you. So I think so many times people think of something like that as something that's hard, recognizing their own kind of sinful proclivities or whatever it might be. They're not quick to associate that with wisdom. Like, this is wise that I see it this way. Because we think of wisdom as a good thing. That feels like a negative thing, so those can't, both be the thing. But for me, that's really helpful to think, man, that's thinking well about it. That's being smart about it and being godly about it.
Yeah, I think so. Even to the point that I think in a really practical way, you're not going to experience the righteousness of God because you're angry. And then he says, if you persist in this, it leads to a death. I think people don't even realize maybe the categories in which they're dying.
Yeah.
If you're an angry person, but you can't admit that, people around you are walking on eggshells. So you're seeing these relationships not really come to life like they could have.
Right.
Because of this. So I do think the denial piece of it and how that just undercuts the endurance work God is doing or hoping for, prescribing for us.
Yeah.
Is really helpful from James. And it comes from, and he's zeroing in on, it really boils down to many instances, blame shifting.
Yeah.
Has put blinders on me, my head in the sand, whatever you would say for denial.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I think it's very helpful in the end.
Yes. Oh, I do too. I do too. Well, I think that'll do it for today. We're glad that you were able to tune in and join us for another edition of Hash It Out. Hopefully this will help you to think well about your trials, think well about yourself in the midst of things, and have a really good understanding and view of God. That God never wants our failure. He always wants our faith, and he's always for our good in that way, is a great starting place. So anyway, we hope to catch you next time on another episode of Hash It Out.